Welcome back. We're 5 weeks in now, and if you've been here from the beginning, something may be shifting. Maybe not dramatically, maybe not all at once, maybe just a quiet recognition that keeps returning, a noticing that wasn't there before. Let me walk us back through what we have covered. Week 1, your body is exhausted because it has been living under surveillance. Week 2, guilt has been installed and you carry responsibility for emotional climates you did not create. Week 3, your body freezes in real time, shutting down your authentic response and replacing it with something safer, smoother, more acceptable. Week 4, you walk away from the conversation and your mind scrambles, replaying, scanning, trying to solve what was designed not to be solvable. Today, we're going somewhere very tender, not because it is always the most obvious wound, but because it is one of the most hidden. Today, we're talking about hyper-responsibility, the pattern of feeling responsible for everyone's emotions, managing the atmosphere, reading the room, fixing the tension before it escalates, sensing the shift before anyone names it, carrying the emotional weight before anyone asks you to. And the reason this one is so hard to see is that many of you have been praised for it your entire lives. You were called dependable, thoughtful, mature, emotionally intelligent, the one who just knows how to read a room. From the outside, it may have looked like maturity. Inside your body, it was labor, and nobody ever asked you what it cost. Section 1. What hyper-responsibility looks like. Let me describe it. And like every other week, I just want you to notice whether your body recognizes this. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to prove anything. Just notice what your body knows. You walk into a room, and before you sit down, you have already scanned it. You know who is tense. You know who is upset. You know which relationships in the room feel strained. You know which person is about to say the thing that makes it worse. And you start adjusting, not consciously maybe. Your body does it automatically. You change your tone. You redirect the conversation. You make a joke to cut the tension. You move toward the person who is withdrawing. You soften your presence so you don't take up too much space. You become whatever the atmosphere seems to require so the emotional temperature stays manageable. You may do this in your family. You may do this at work. You may do this in friendships. You may do this at church. You may even do this with strangers in the grocery store. And when something goes wrong, when someone gets upset, when conflict erupts, when the atmosphere shifts, something inside you says, I should have caught that. I should have prevented that. That was my job. And that sentence right there is the wound. That was my job. Because somewhere along the way, the emotional state of the room became your responsibility before you were old enough to know that it was never yours to carry. You were not born managing rooms. You learned to. Your body learned it because the cost of not learning it was too high. Section 2, where this lives in the body. Hyperresponsibility has a specific body signature, and it is different from the other patterns we've talked about, even though they overlap. The eyes are always working, scanning faces, reading micro expressions, tracking who shifted in their chair, whose jaw tightened, whose voice changed pitch, whose silence suddenly became loud. You may not even realize you're doing it, but your visual system is running a constant emotional threat assessment of the people around you. Not because you are dramatic, not because you are too sensitive, because your body learned that faces were weather systems. And if you could read the weather early enough, maybe, just maybe, you could survive the storm. The chest carries a low-level hum, not exactly anxiety, more like readiness. You are never fully at rest when other people are present, even in safe environments, even with people you love, even when nothing is technically wrong. There is a part of your nervous system that stays on just in case. The shoulders hold. They carry weight the room does not know you are managing. You may not notice it until the end of the day, when your shoulders finally drop and you realize they have been lifted toward your ears for hours. And then there is the fatigue, a very particular kind of fatigue. It is related to the surveillance fatigue from week 1, but it is not exactly the same. This is the exhaustion of being emotionally responsible for people who never asked you to carry them and who may not even know you are doing it. This is one of the loneliest parts. You are doing invisible labor in the atmosphere, and nobody sees it, because the whole point of the role is that nobody sees it. If the system had to acknowledge how much you were carrying, the system would have to change. So the body keeps carrying it quietly. It carries tension, it carries moods, it carries pauses, it carries silence. It carries the emotional weather of everyone around it. And after years of this, it can start to feel like breathing. Section 3. how this gets installed. I want to be careful here because this is the week where we start to look not only at what the body does, but how the role was formed. Not just what hyperresponsibility looks like, but where it came from. In certain relational environments, and I'm being intentional with that language, children learn very early that the emotional climate of the home is not stable. It shifts, sometimes without warning, sometimes without explanation. The temperature changes and nobody says why. A child may not have words for it, but the body knows. Something is wrong. Someone is upset. The air is different. The room is not safe in the same way it was 5 minutes ago. And the child begins to learn that the safest thing to do is manage the climate, to become the thermostat. Not because anyone sits them down and says, your job is to regulate everyone's emotions, but because the consequences of not doing it are severe enough that the child's nervous system figures it out on its own. If I can keep the room calm, nothing bad happens. If I can read what they need before they ask, the withdrawal might not come. If I can fix the tension before it escalates, maybe tonight will be okay. If I can become easy enough, helpful enough, pleasant enough, quiet enough, maybe the atmosphere will hold. That is not emotional intelligence. That is a survival strategy developed by a child who was never supposed to be holding that weight. The child became the regulator because nobody else in the system was doing it, and nobody relieved them of the role. So they carried it into adulthood, into every room, every relationship, every job, every friendship, every church. And eventually, the role started to feel like identity. Being the good one, the responsible one, the steady one. The one who holds it together, the one who knows what everyone needs, the one who can handle it. But beneath that identity is often a child's nervous system that never got to stop working. Pause here. Because if your body is realizing this before your mind can catch up, that makes sense. This was not just something you believed. It was something your body practiced for survival. Section 4, the cost nobody talks about. Here's what hyperresponsibility takes from you, and I want you to listen to this slowly, not as accusation, not as pressure, just as recognition. You lose access to your own emotions because when your nervous system is tuned to everyone else's emotional state, there is very little bandwidth left for your own. You may not know what you feel until hours later, or days later, or after you are finally alone. Or you may not know at all, because by the time you have space to check, the next atmosphere needs managing. You lose the ability to rest in the presence of others because other people mean work, not consciously, not because you don't love them, not because you don't want connection, but somatically, your body has learned that other people bring emotional variables you may have to manage. So even love can feel like labor. Even closeness can feel like vigilance. Even peace can feel like something you have to maintain. You lose the right to have needs. Because in the system where this was installed, your needs were not the point. The atmosphere was the point. Their comfort was the point. Keeping the peace was the point. And making sure nothing escalated was the point. Your needs were not just inconvenient. They may have felt dangerous because a need means presence. A need means space. A need means someone else may have to respond. And in a system built around emotional management, your needs could feel like a threat to the mission. And you lose the ability to tell the difference between love and management. Because in your body, they may feel the same. Taking care of someone and managing their emotional state got fused together so early that you may not know where one ends and the other begins. So you may call it love when you are actually monitoring. You may call it kindness when you are actually preventing. You may call it peacekeeping when your body is really trying to keep you safe. And this is the line I want to place gently in the center of this teaching. You have been so busy carrying the room that you forgot you were in it. You were there too. Your body was there. Your needs were there. Your voice was there. Your emotions were there. Your presence mattered too. But hyper-responsibility taught you to experience yourself as the one who holds the room instead of someone who also belongs inside of it. Section 5. How this connects to weeks 1 through 4. The thread is getting very clear now. Let me show you. Week 1, you're exhausted. Now you know part of why. You're not only responding to surveillance, you may also be running surveillance on everyone else's emotional state at the same time. Watching them, reading them, anticipating them, trying to prevent the next shift. Week 2. The guilt makes sense. You were trained to feel responsible for the climate. So when anything goes wrong, the installed guilt says, that was yours to prevent. You should have seen it coming. You should have handled it better. Week 3. The freeze makes sense. You are not only managing your own response, you are managing the room's response to your response. Your body shuts down your authentic reaction because authentic reactions are unpredictable, and unpredictable can feel dangerous in a system that requires emotional control. Week 4. The confusion makes sense. After a conversation, your brain is not only processing what happened to you, it is processing what happened to everyone. Their tone, their face, their posture, their silence, their unspoken needs, the possible disappointment, their possible anger, their possible withdrawal. The scramble is not only about what was said, it is about whether you did your job well enough. Surveillance, guilt, freeze, confusion, and now the hidden role underneath so much of it, hyper-responsibility. Hyper-responsibility is the hidden engine. It is the role beneath the exhaustion, the guilt, the freeze, and the confusion. This week is not just a new symptom. It is a deeper layer of the architecture. The place where the body says, I am responsible for keeping everyone okay, even if keeping everyone okay costs me myself. Section 6, a word about recovery. I want to speak directly to the person who just felt their stomach drop, the one who just realized, I've been doing this my entire life, and I didn't know it was optional. It was not your fault that this role was installed. A child who learns to regulate the atmosphere of a household is not being responsible. They are surviving. And the fact that you carried it this far into adulthood, into relationships, into rooms full of people who had no idea you were holding the ceiling up, that is not something to be ashamed of. That is extraordinary endurance under conditions no child should have been placed inside. What I want you to take from today is the same thing I've asked every other week. Recognition. Just see it. The next time you walk into a room and your eyes start scanning, Your chest starts humming. Your shoulders start holding. Just notice. You do not have to stop. You probably cannot stop. Not yet. And that is okay. You do not have to turn healing into another responsibility. Just name it. And naming it is not failure. Naming it is the first mercy. That's the thermostat. That's my nervous system taking responsibility for the room. That role was installed. It is not who I am. Naming it is how you begin to separate yourself from the role. Not by forcing yourself to stop caring, but by recognizing that caring and managing are not the same thing. You can care without carrying. You can love without monitoring. You can be present without becoming responsible for the entire emotional climate. And that may take time because your body learned this honestly. Your body learned this to protect you. So we do not shame the body for scanning. We simply begin to tell the truth. This was a role. This was survival. This was not my design. The spiritual physics of hyper-responsibility. I want to close where I always close, with real Jesus. Because this pattern is not just relational, it is spiritual, and the distinction matters. Before I go here, I want to say something. If you grew up in a system that used scripture as a weapon, if the Bible was part of the architecture that controlled you, I see that. And I am not going to do that here. In the scripture I'm going to talk about, God is not adding weight to what you already carry. He is not asking the exhausted child to become even more responsible. He is naming who was supposed to be carrying the weight all along. And that is what I want to address today. In Isaiah 46, God makes an extraordinary distinction. He describes the false gods of Babylon, idols that had to be carried by their people, heavy statues loaded onto weary animals. The people served the gods by carrying them. The weight was on the worshipers. And then God says something entirely different about himself. He says, I have carried you since birth. I have upheld you since the womb. Even to your old age, I am He. I will carry you. I have made you, and I will bear you. Do you hear the inversion? The false system that says you carry everything. The true God says, I carry you. That is spiritual physics. Because in the system where hyper-responsibility was installed, you were trained to be the carrier. The emotional weight of the household was loaded onto you, like those idols loaded onto tired animals. You carried people who should have been carrying themselves. You managed atmospheres you did not create. You regulated systems that were not your responsibility. You became the support structure for something that was never supposed to rest on a child. And God looks at that and says, that was never the design. You were not made to carry the room. You were made to be carried. Not because you are weak, because you are beloved. And because you are beloved, you are allowed to set that role down. You are allowed to stop being the thermostat. You are allowed to leave rooms that require you to disappear in order for everyone else to stay comfortable. You are allowed to remove idols that require you to carry them. The false gods always demand to be carried. They always put the weight back on the worshiper. But the living God carries his children. He does not crush them beneath the weight of systems he never designed. The God who carries does not install a child as the thermostat of a household. That was the system, not the design. So when you start to see hyper-responsibility for what it is, when you begin to recognize that the scanning and the managing and the holding are not your identity, but your survival architecture, know this. You are not losing something good. You are setting down something that was never yours. You are not becoming less loving. You are becoming less enslaved to management. You are not becoming selfish. You are returning to the truth that your presence matters too. And sometimes returning to that truth means staying in the room differently. And sometimes it means leaving the room entirely. Not as punishment, not as rebellion, but as obedience to the God who never asked you to be sacrificed on the altar of someone else's emotional climate. You are not abandoning your calling. You are refusing a counterfeit assignment. You are remembering that you are also allowed to exist. You are also allowed to breathe. You are also allowed to be held. And there is a God who has been holding you the entire time you were holding everyone else. That's where the nervous system and the spirit meet. That's the physics. That's where we'll leave it this week. Hyper responsibility. The child who became the thermostat, the body that learned to carry the room before it learned to recognize itself inside it. And a God who says, I have been carrying you the whole time. If something in this landed for you, sit with it gently. You've been managing for a long time. You do not have to manage this too. You do not have to turn recognition into performance. You do not have to heal perfectly. You do not have to make this revelation useful by tomorrow. Just let yourself see it. Let the truth come softly. Let your body hear this slowly. That role was installed. This is not who I am. I was not made to carry the room. I was made to be carried. Next time, we're going to talk about what happens when the room shifts and nobody says why. Emotional weather shifts. Week 6. We'll get there. You are seen. You are safe. You are deeply loved. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time.